One of the things that I love about architecture is that there's always somebody ready to take things to completely the next level in terms of radically sustainable design. And Earthship is a great example of that. And today we've travelled to Adelaide in South Australia to visit the region's very first council-approved Earthship. G'day Marty!
G'day Bryce!
Good to meet you, mate.
Yeah, you too, welcome.
This place looks like something out of a science fiction movie, doesn't it?
It does a little, yeah.
Now there's a lot of people out there who I'm sure have never heard of an Earthship before. What is an Earthship exactly?
Okay, well an Earthship is a off-the-grid building made out of natural and recycled materials. It's a bit like a spaceship or a sailing boat that has to be all self-sufficient, doing everything for itself with its power, water and sewage. It's also called an Earthship because it uses a lot of earth in its construction, earth being a very sustainable construction material, so that's a good thing. And also you have to kind of sail the Earthship a little bit, thinking about, you know, when to open and close windows and doors and vents to make sure you've got a nice, comfortable indoor temperature.
The thing that inspired this project was really the work of Michael Reynolds, who started this Earthship thing back in the 70s and 80s. He was experimenting with this stuff, and one of his books was what got me really thinking that perhaps we could do something like this.
I was probably a little skeptical that we had the resources and the energy to pull it off, but yeah, totally supportive of the idea. And I don't know at what point along the way I fell in love with it, but certainly the end result is worth it.
Now what you've done here is really cool as well, because you've taken this Earthship concept but you've kind of downsized it, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it's actually based on one of Mike Reynolds' designs. He calls it the Simple Survival Model Earthship, and he developed it in response to an earthquake in Haiti. So yeah, I sort of took my lead from that design and made a few little changes just for our Australian climate, dealing with things like bushfires and slightly more extreme heat. So it's just a little demonstration Earthship to try and get people excited and exposed to this idea of Earthships. Yeah.
So what size is this one?
This one is about 70 square meters. So the main living space is about 25. The greenhouse is about the same, 25, and then the bathroom's 10 and the entry is also 10.
And so how did the Earthship itself come about?
I went over to America to visit Mike Reynolds and his Earthship communities, and I actually went and learned to build. I did their internship for a month. Then I just really wanted to come back home and start doing it. So if you look on this property, you'll notice there are little tyre structures everywhere. We've got what we call the chook ship up there, which is a little, you know, chook house made out of tyres. And I started a rainwater tank that I never finished out of tyres, and it didn't take too long for me to go, no, I want to actually do something more substantial. And one of the real interesting things about this project is that this is actually the first council-approved Earthship in Australia. There were a few projects similar to this that went before, but they didn't go through the council approval process, and I wanted to really show that you could get council approval for something, you know, a building as unusual as this, you know, using all these strange construction materials. And I guess the other part of the story is it became a bed and breakfast. Because we already had our straw bale house, we weren't allowed to have a second dwelling. So instead of a dwelling, it's a bed and breakfast.
You scratched on it before that one of the main things about an Earthship is it being completely off the grid, and you can really see that with this one. The top of this home looks like a soldier ready to go into battle. It's totally loaded with off-grid tech. Can you tell me a little bit about all that?
Well, one of the great things about the Earthship is that it is so energy and water efficient that you don't need too much tech, hopefully. So there's only a 1 kilowatt solar array on there, and also there's a solar hot water service and skylights and things like that for ventilation. And yeah, so there's a lot happening on that roof.
Absolutely. And then on this side of the roof, it's really unique as well, because it looks like you've just kind of got these banked gardens going into a gravel roof.
That's part of the Earthship thing, is that behind the building on the south side, you have this bank of earth that's called an earth berm. And what that does is provide really good thermal stability to the building, because it's sort of like it's, you know, almost like an underground home, and they're really renowned for their very nice stable indoor temperatures. But of course it's also very bushfire resistant, so the gravel on the roof, apart from it being a wonderful filter for the rainwater that we catch off it, it's also non-flammable. You know, it's not going to burn in a bushfire.
Absolutely. So this gravel is actually acting like a filter. How does the rainwater collection here work?
Yeah, you can see at the back, that's sort of like a box where all the water that falls on that roof, there's a rubber sheet to waterproof the roof. So after the water passes through the gravel, it hits the rubber sheet and all drains to a box, and from that box it gets split out to 2 buried tanks. It means they last longer, the water is kept cool, and there's all sorts of benefits to putting the tanks there.
One of the things that completely enamors me with the whole Earthship design though is, aside from all of the cool off-grid tech and all of that stuff, they're just beautiful, aren't they? Like everything that's on this one with this almost kind of elven architecture, and then you've got the greenhouse at the front. It just looks so unique but gorgeous at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you on all those things. Another thing I really love about it is the symmetry of it. Like when you're looking from the front of it, there's this beautiful symmetry to it. I'm not sure, but I suspect one of the intangible things that makes people love the Earthship is those curves. Like it's so different to the usual sort of boxy shapes that we're all familiar with. So yeah, I think the curves are what do it for people.
Should we go and see if those curves are continued on the inside?
Let's do that.
All right, let's take a look.
Yeah, come on in, Bryce.
Thank you.
This is the entry room, and it's also a little utility room. So in here you've got a battery bank, about 14 kilowatt hours of batteries. So I think something like the Tesla Powerwall is about 10 kilowatt hours. So a little bit bigger. Yeah, and that's the old school lead acid battery type technology, but it's all very low maintenance. In fact, it's zero maintenance. I've done nothing to it. You don't need to top it up with electrolyte or anything like that. The next room over here is the greenhouse, so come and check out the greenhouse.
Oh, now this is seriously cool. It's like having a forest in your living room, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah. I feel like it's the most beautiful part of the Earthship. A really unusual thing to have in a home, really, to dedicate this much space really to an indoor garden, but it's a really multifunctional space. So it's a really important part of how we regulate the indoor temperature in the living spaces back here. It's also a place where obviously, you know, there's all this beauty, but you can grow food in here. We harvested about 100 bananas off one of these banana palms here in winter. So I'm sure that was a world first for, you know, bananas up here in the Adelaide hills. It gets pretty cold here in the winter. So yeah, it's this beautiful indoor gardening space where you can garden all year round. Also, another amazing part of this is that it is a wastewater treatment system. So the idea is that whenever you have a bath or shower, you can harvest that grey water by directing it into this garden bed. It's essentially a wicking bed with a layer of gravel at the bottom. That fills up with your grey water and then wicks up through the soil to the plant's roots. Another cool idea is that once the water has passed through this garden bed, it's actually been cleaned up and is clean enough for toilet flushing. So you can have a pump at the end and use that to flush the toilet. I did have trouble getting approval for that. Ultimately, I got told in the end that I was a very naughty boy and I wasn't allowed to put the grey water in here anymore. So if you have a look down here, under these pot plants, there's a little plumbing box, and this is the valve that I was told I had to remove, but essentially it enables you just by turning the handle to direct your grey water into this garden bed, or you can direct your grey water out into the septic tank, which is of course the normal thing that would happen. And it's a wonderful system that worked well for a long time before I was told I had to remove the valve. Yeah.
What a shame though that the council wouldn't actually let you do that, because we just drove through about 3 days of drought-stricken Australia to get here, where people are really trying to hang on to water, and then here they're just like, no, it's waste, it's got to go in the septic. It just seems so short-sighted to me to not allow people to experiment with clever utilisation of grey water.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Bryce. It was really frustrating to be told, no, you're not allowed to do this. But yeah, I hope that one day these laws will change, because I mean, we kind of know it's not a health hazard.
Yeah. Sometimes I really think bureaucracy is just going to kill us all.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I suppose the amazing thing about this project is that that was the only sticking point, whereas there were all these other things like the tyre walls and, you know, the bottle walls and things like that. So I guess I'm thankful in a way that I didn't have more problems.
Fair enough too. And talking about the bottle walls, they look stunning in here, don't they? Yeah,
I'm pretty pleased with the bottle walls. For such a tiny little Earthship, it's got a lot of bottle walls. They take a lot of effort to get looking nice, and I'm really grateful to all the wonderful people who helped me build this Earthship, because some of them showed real attention to detail, really put their heart and soul into it.
Now, as much as I love the idea of including a greenhouse within your home, does it just cook in here in the summer?
Well, thanks for that question, Bryce, because that's a question a lot of people ask, and the answer is not really. So typically what will happen is it can be 40 plus degrees outside, and surprisingly in here it's cooler. So it'll probably be about 10 degrees cooler than outside, and I've kind of put that down to the sun just sort of bouncing off these double glazed windows at the front. So that helps keep things cool, and also, yeah, just all the thermal mass in the living space and the floors out here, that really helps to keep it cool, because it's all tapping into the stable, cool temperature of the earth underneath the building.
And you being completely equal to my level of architectural geekiness, you've actually graphed and monitored all of that, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I could show you some graphs if you want. You'll notice throughout the building little temperature sensors here and there. They're actually recording the temperature every half an hour. And I've been monitoring the temperature now for 2 or 3 years. And what I'm finding is it is, a remarkably energy efficient building. And also there's another really interesting thing I'd love to show you in a minute, which is the underground earth tubes that act as like a free air conditioning system.
I'd love to check that out.
Okay.
Cool, so where is that hiding?
That's back in here.
Okay.
Okay, so this is kind of a little maintenance hatch down to the earth tubes. It's like a little cellar. So there are actually 2 tubes down there. They're about 250 mil in diameter, and they're about 1 meter deep. Although as they go down the hill, they get deeper, down to about 2.5 meters deep in a big trench that we dug one day. It was actually a really warm day, about 40 degrees. And I measured the temperature on the bottom of the trench, and it was 13 degrees. So that really shows the stable and cool temperature of the ground at that depth, and that's what these earth tubes are really tapping into. So as the air passes through them, it changes temperature to that stable temperature of the earth. So what I do is I usually keep this closed, and I use this little cupboard here, which has a grill in the bottom. This is where the air comes through into the home, so I can close this off if I don't want too much cross ventilation. And there's also a little sensor here which is showing at the moment that the air's coming through at about 17 degrees. It's also got the air speed. It's really important that the air moves through slowly. If it comes through too quickly, it doesn't have time to change temperature. And so what I'm finding with this, it can be 40 degrees outside and the air coming through here is 20 degrees. So it's much, much better than opening up a window or something like that. And in the winter, it warms the air up.
So it really is just like having a free air conditioner.
It's a free air conditioner, yeah.
That's so clever. You're going to put some companies out of business with that one.
Oh, I hope not, Bryce. Well, actually, I hope so.
I hope so. And then, of course, that has brought us into the living space of the Earthship. Nicely done, and all sort of, just a very open plan room, isn't it?
Yeah, it's intended to be very multifunctional. So the bed here, that's a futon bed that can fold away to a couch. So often Zoe comes down here and does yoga with a few friends, so we can use it as a yoga space. Sometimes I just set my laptop up here and get work done here. And yeah, there's a little kitchenette over there. Also this cupboard that's regulating the airflow for the earth tubes, that's also designed as a bench seat, so that, yeah, that's got a little bit of storage in it as well.
And of course I see the fireplace over there in the corner. Lovely addition.
Yeah. And also that's multifunction as well, because apart from the heat it provides and the cooking function, it's also boosting the hot water system. So if the solar hot water system is not providing enough hot water, you can light the fire and within a couple of hours you'll have lots of hot water.
Standing in this room, it actually feels almost a bit like being in a cave, doesn't it? This beautiful earthen floor and then the cool roof design. Can you tell me how all this came about?
Yeah, I think I mentioned before that this was built with lots of wonderful volunteers and could not have done it without them. For example, this roof structure, it's made out of lots of reinforcing bar, steel bar with sort of like a chicken wire type mesh on it that you use as a lath to plaster a cement mortar onto. So yeah, that was built over to the side of the Earthship and then lifted up by about 30 people who were here volunteering to help build this Earthship. And when it was landed on the top of the tyre walls here, these walls are made out of about 700 car tyres filled with compacted earth. Then we poured a concrete beam on top of the tyres that really helps to lock that roof structure onto the wall structure, makes it all super strong, and then spent a few days just plastering lots of cement mortar onto that wire mesh structure. So that's what's giving us this beautiful vaulted or arched shape. And it's been finished off beautifully again by the volunteers with a lime render and then whitewashed or lime washed. Then you've got the beautiful earthen render on the tyre walls, and then that meets the earthen floors, which is essentially the same ingredients that are used to make all the other earthen wall renders. It's just sort of the clay that was from our site. And it's the same on the floor, but the floor's a different colour because we've got a linseed oil finish. So multiple coats of linseed oil that soaks in and makes it waterproof and not dusty, feels nice to your bare feet kind of thing.
And then what is through that door over there?
That is the bathroom. Do you want to go check that out?
Let's check it out.
All right. So this is the bathroom.
Wow, and here, that bottle wall just jumps out at you, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. And at certain times of the day, as the sun's going down to the west, it really jumps out even more.
I bet. Now this bath is beautiful. Is this done with Adelaide?
You're quite right, Bryce, that is Adelaide. And again, that was something that some wonderful volunteers did. There was a couple of them who had experience with Adelaide, and they taught the others how to do this waterproof plaster is what it is. And it's an ancient Moroccan technique that was used. And yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
And then the shower over here, and of course you've got another bottle wall as a feature behind that.
Yeah, there are bottles just everywhere. It was probably a little ambitious to have a bottle wall in a shower recess because there's some waterproofing issues and things there, but I think I managed to solve those problems. You probably wouldn't usually see a bottle wall in a shower recess, but I think, yeah, you can see now some beautiful light coming through that. And yeah, look, it's been quite serviceable and it's working well.
You've got a washing machine as well,
yeah,
and also a flushing toilet.
Yeah, the flushing toilet probably deserves some explanation because you'd probably expect to see a composting toilet in a more ecological building. But we thought for the Earthship we'd stick with that sort of Earthship principle of trying to use the grey water for flushing. But as I said before, unfortunately local regulations don't let us flush with grey water, so it's a bit frustrating.
And what's through here?
Okay, so out this door we have a little outdoor area. So we got a couple of chairs and a table, lovely space just to chill out in the Adelaide Hills.
And what a place just to take in the view and all the wildlife I'm sure out here as well.
There's some beautiful wildlife. Often there's a little family of kangaroos down there munching on the grass, and sometimes they're joined by some cows and koalas and wedge-tail eagles. Yeah, we've got it all here.
And I guess one of the other things that we have to address is the cost, because this is such a unique project. Earthships are incredibly labour intensive. Can you talk to me about what this actually cost to build?
It cost about 170,000 Australian dollars to build. That doesn't include a lot of the labour that the volunteers brought to the project.
We'd already built a straw bale house a few years ago, and I do remember vividly halfway through that project standing out the front thinking, could we sell this unfinished? And so second time around building the Earthship, there were points where I think we both thought, this is too much, it's too hard. But we got there in the end and it's worth it, so.
Yeah, there were many times where you just felt like things are going too slowly and this is too hard and all that kind of thing. But yeah, you just keep chipping away at it and you get there in the end, and yeah, it's been a good experience. Yeah, you learn that by persistence you can get there in the end.
Well, I really love the finished result of this home. One of the things that just jumps out to me is that it is completely functional and packed with all this very sort of clever building technology, even if a lot of it's natural and innate technology, but the result is just as beautiful as it is functional. Thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Thank you, Bryce.
What I love about Earthships goes so much further beyond the cleverness of all of the design and the technology that goes into making it all possible. It really just comes down to the fact that they're beautiful, and ultimately Building beauty into our home is one of the most important things that we can do in a place that we live.